Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate everybody being here this morning. So I'm just going to say a couple little quick things. I'm Shar, the new president of Forward Janesville. Let me give you a minute to calm down. All right, thank you. Good morning. I'm Shar Hermanson, the new president and CEO of Forward Janesville. We want to make sure to welcome everybody this morning and thank you for coming out to do a very quick update about all the things that our robust team at Forward Janesville has been working on. You might have seen some of the information on Keep Kids Learning. So we're educating how important the workforce is to our business community. We're doing some speeches out and letting people know about the vote on Tuesday, and we want to make sure everybody does vote and has an opportunity to be there. Our annual dinner is coming up with Fred Smith, who is the founder of FedEx, and it's sold out. We're at capacity, so if you didn't get a ticket, sorry, but if you did get a ticket, thank you for joining us. We are very excited for that. Membership, thanks to Eric's hard work, wherever Eric is. We're at 575 members with Forward Janesville, so thank you all for your referrals and spreading the word about the work that Forward Janesville is doing. We appreciate that. A newer initiative that we have, and we have Sylvia here, is Adelante Janesville, and it's gaining such positive momentum in the community, and we're really excited about next year's planning. We just did that strategy meeting yesterday, and there's a lot of great things happening with Adelante Janesville. Another thing, you might be getting a call from someone from Forward Janesville. We're doing some business retention and expansion visits, so we're going to come out and talk to you and ask you questions. We've got a 5 or 6 person team that's doing those visits, and we're hoping to get a meeting with you by the end of the year. So if you get that call, please say yes, and it takes about an hour, so plan for that. And we just welcome you all here and thank you for your attention. I'll turn it over to Kevin.
How you're dropping your cards. Thanks everyone for being here this morning. I really appreciate it. Getting up early with us and having breakfast. It's really important to us here. I wanted to just take a moment to just give a few updates as to what's going on in the city before I get into my formal slideshow. We're going to talk a lot about budget and things like that. The thing that I wanted to make sure that everybody knew is that, kind of where we're at on the acquisition and redevelopment of the GM Jatco site. So we know it gets a lot of community interest right now. And we are in the phase of acquiring that property where we are exchanging appraisals. So under the state statutes, we go and we do our appraisal and present it to the property owner. And the property owner has an opportunity to get their own appraisal. And then we have a period of negotiation after that. So right now we are in that process of exchanging appraisals. And we'll be shortly reviewing those and then moving on to the next steps of that acquisition process. But as the state statute is set up, we are very likely to have control of those properties by the beginning of next year, probably January timeframe. And then we'll be moving on to do the next phase of that, which is really getting into the hard work of redevelopment. On that note, on Monday, the City Council approved a couple of grant applications. Run real, minor $20 million grant application. So that is what is known as the Community Change Grant. And as we started talking about the redevelopment of the GM Jatco site, in the classic city manager role of knowing a little bit about a lot of things, I'm like, there are these grants out there that were part of an infrastructure bill. I don't know a lot about them. Let's figure out what we can find. And this Community Change Grant was one of those grants that was part of the infrastructure bill. And it's focused on environmental justice, which is really looking at specific census tracts and then that have been impacted by brownfields and whatnot, and developing a plan to redevelop those in a positive way. And so that Community Change Grant is an extensive process. And the deadline for application is in November of this year, and November 28th, I believe, of this year. We submitted that grant yesterday. So we are very hopeful that we are in line. We think we have a really good grant application. We have a lot of folks on our team that worked on that, in particular Jim DeCouborn, who lived and breathed the grant for the last several months. And so we are very hopeful that we're going to get that grant. It's going to be a very competitive process. It's new. No one's really done it before. There's just been a few of those that have been awarded recently. But it has been an extensive process to get to this point. So that's one that we're really, really excited about. The other is a site assessment grant. It's another EPA grant, which will help us study the site and then also do planning. And so the planning piece is going to be very, very important. And we want to have a really good planning process with input from all of you and from the community and from folks that are impacted by the redevelopment of this site. And so we're going to do an extensive planning process as we go forward to really look at a vision for that property. And we're very excited about it. There are lots of assets there, and I think that we're going to have a very positive impact on the community as a whole. And then the other grant that we are in the process of obtaining is just a federal appropriation. And so Senator Baldwin put a federal appropriation and has gone through the Appropriations Committee. And so the next step in that process is approval by Congress. And so we know Congress is very functional and it's going to be very efficient. But we expect that they will approve a budget, obviously after the election sometime in the spring of 2025. And so we're very positive on that. It's gone through all the steps in terms of the appropriations process, and we're now just waiting on final action by Congress. And so all of that combined is really for us to get a jump start on redeveloping that property. In addition to those grants, we've already established a tax increment finance district for that area. And so we're going to have the resources, and we're going to put in the resources to really focus on redeveloping that property the best and highest use that we possibly can. Because, that property has a legacy here in this community, and we have to do the best that we can to redevelop that property in a positive way. So that's where we're at in terms of that process, and we're very excited about where that goes. You've been to City Hall lately. It's a busy place. So we have to do a shout out to our clerks, our election poll workers, our volunteers. We are seeing incredible turnout in terms of early ballots being cast right now. As of this morning, we have received 12,874 ballots, either through the mail or in person absentee voting right now. By the end of the day on Friday, we expect that we're going to already have received 17,000 ballots through the early voting process prior to Election Day. And so that process is an intense process. It is, the absentee early voting, they come in and then they all have to be counted on Election Day. We don't get any kind of head start on counting. We should be able to, but the state law hasn't changed yet to be able to do that. But we have to count all those ballots on Election Day. It's an all hands on deck effort, in addition to all the ballots that are cast on Election Day at the different polling places. If you want to cast an early ballot, you should go today. This will be the lowest volume day of the week. And then Thursday and Friday will be hardcore, high volume, long lines day. So hat tip to anybody here who wants to go cast a ballot, go today. Wednesday will be the slowest day. So just FYI. We have, our folks are just working overtime to do that. Another thing that's in process that you may not have heard much about, because it's really been kind of an internal process, is that we are in the final stretch of choosing a group to open a near-site clinic for city employees. And so we've been working on this for several months now. We did an RFP, and what that is an employee clinic which is designed to really improve healthcare outcomes for our employees, provide greater access to healthcare, but importantly for the taxpayers in the room, is to reduce our overall healthcare costs. This is really a disruptor in terms of healthcare. There are some businesses, some of you may be doing it at your own businesses, but we are really excited about that, and we're going to be selecting a vendor soon and bringing a contract to City Council to do a near-site clinic for city employees. And those types of services are going to be things like the occupational health, but also personal health types of things. Eventually, we'll probably be adding physical therapy and some other things, but we are in the process of selecting that vendor right now, and we're very excited about that, and our employees are very excited about that. Innovation Park on the south side of town, we are installing infrastructure there. So if you are interested in building or expanding here in the city of Janesville, give us a ring. We got property, we got roads, we got water and sewer going in right now. And we are very excited about that. That's just south of Dollar General. We have several sites that will be ready for development here in the near future, and we're very excited about that. One of the things that you may not have noticed is that Rock County was recently noted as having one of the lowest unemployment rates in the entire state of Wisconsin. And so we were one of 8 that were noted by the governor's office just the other day. And that's just a testament to all of you in the room. We have incredible economic growth here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's going on. But we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the state. We should all be very proud of that. We have an economic engine here that continues to roll. And what that means for us, is that we need to support that by adding housing, and we need to add housing of all types here in Janesville. And we are, it's nice to see that in our development process right now, that we are starting to see some residential developments coming through, which were had slowed down a little bit while interest rates went up for a while. So now the Plan Commission just approved a residential development the other night. We're seeing some more come through. We're having some more multifamily properties come explore Janesville. So you're going to see some of that housing stuff start to come out. But housing is going to be extremely important to our economic growth in this community, and housing at all levels, from the highest level to the affordable level and everything in between. We have a housing gap right now. We don't have enough of our volume in order to support the folks that want to live here. And those folks want to work in your businesses. And so we are working on that very hard as well. And then last but not least, the Woodman Center is on time and on budget. I see Mr. Cullen right here. Every time I see him in public, he's guaranteed on time and on budget. But that process has been going very well. We're very excited about where that's at. We're already seeing the impacts of that project as we look at property values on Milton Avenue. Property values are going up. Improvements are being made to local businesses. We're seeing new construction down there, and it's only going to get better as we go forward. So that project, even though it's not even done yet, is already having a positive impact on our community. I got a couple of updates for you, and I just want to talk a little bit about, this is some stuff that I presented to the City Council, and just a little bit about putting Janesville in context as it relates to the rest of the state when it comes to economic growth and what we're doing with our budget as a whole. And so, before I got that, you might want to take out your cameras and take a shot of this. These are the very exciting Leader Breakfast dates for 2025. And so we'll send this out to the whole group, but we have them set for the next year. It is the place to be, as you can all tell. And we are very excited to have these. So we have these set for 2025. We're going to do some different locations and things like that, but those are our dates that are locked in. And so I'm going to have to talk to my team about that October 29th date, because that's like peak rut time for bow hunters. So we might change that one, but other than that, we're all right. So this is, I just wanted to give a little bit of comparison. So these are the cities in the state of Wisconsin that are comparable in population and demographics to the city of Janesville. they range roughly from about 50 to 100,000, and then we threw Beloit in there because they're close, and they're here in Rock County. And so they're a little bit smaller than that. So we hear a lot, and you all hear a lot, and you are concerned about, rightly so, about taxes in our community. And one of the things that I just wanted to make sure that we put into context of how do we stack up against the rest of the state. And so from a municipal tax rate standpoint, the city of Janesville, of cities of similar size, has the lowest tax rate in the state. So if you're talking about cities of 50 to 100,000, these are full service cities. Typically, they're the county seat. Typically, they're the cities that were established the longest. They're legacy cities. They have developed downtowns. You recognize all of them, of course. And so our municipal tax rate is the lowest of those comparison cities. And we use these cities as comparison points around a variety of topics, but we're going to talk about taxes and revenue today. So if you take the combined rate, of the county, the school district, the city, and the tech college, we are in the bottom third of that. We have two rates because we have both the Milton and the Janesville school district here. So the rate is slightly different. But again, if you take our combined rate, we're on the lower half of our comparison cities. If you look at those cities there. Municipal property tax levy per capita. So again, this is like where you kind of strip out everything and just kind of compare it on how much you pay on a per capita basis. Again, we are among the lowest, $634 per capita. And you can see how we compare to other cities here in the state. And then general government spending per capita. So these are kind of the basic core functions of government. We are the lowest of our comparison cities in the state. And a lot of this data comes from some of our own research where we went and we had to physically find the budgets of other communities. But there's also what's known as the Wisconsin Policy Forum, who has a municipal data tool. And you can go on there and you can play with data and you can create custom comparisons. And it is updated on an annual basis. A little bit of a lag just because it takes time for budgets to be passed and then the data to be collected. But this compares every community. It has county information across the state, across a variety of information and data. And so it's a really good tool. So if you're a data nerd like me, you can go in there and you can find this stuff and compare yourselves, our community to others as you look at it. So again, government spending per capita, we're very efficient in terms of how we spend our dollars. The net operating spending per capita, so this is for the operating budget, so what we spend on our daily operations, running the police station, the fire, the public works, all that sort of stuff. We're at $1,044 per capita, again, among the lowest. And then our municipal debt. And so there's lots of concerns about debt. And as you know, in Wisconsin, there is a statutory limit of how much debt that you can issue. And then in the city of Janesville, we have a local policy where we limit that to 50% of the cap for the city. And so we've been very, very judicious about how we spend over the years and how much we spend on in terms of issuing debt. And the debt that we do issue is generally pretty short term. We try to issue 10-year debt where we can. Occasionally we issue 15-year debt. And again, so that kind of creates a better interest rate, gets debt off the books more quickly, and it allows us to do what we can do with the money that we do. Debt is used to the classic things that you would think of: build roads, build infrastructure, build buildings, things that are going to have a long shelf life. Shared revenue per capita, my favorite topic. So we know that we had a big shared revenue boost in this last year, but the state legislature basically they just added more, but they did not change the formula overall. And so on a per capita basis, the city of Janesville gets the third lowest of cities of similar size. And we are going to continue to have the conversation with our state legislators on trying to get that formula changed to create a more equitable distribution. Again, no shade to my friends in Beloit, but you can see the difference in terms of the shared revenue per capita, which is quite significant. And so we think that there should be a bigger balance. We essentially are collecting income taxes here and state sales taxes here in Janesville and sending it to other parts of the state, and we don't think that's necessarily fair. And so we are going to continue to try to get that formula changed to create a more equitable distribution of the shared revenue dollars. And so we were very thankful for what the legislature did. It's the first time they've touched it in years and years. It was an incredible legislative achievement from the municipal side. But there is still work to do as it relates to that issue, and we're going to continue to work on it. And so just real briefly, I wanted to talk about what our budget's going to do this year. Start out with what we did last year, some of the things that we did with the funds that we had. We started a new program to send firefighters to paramedic school. This is designed to send paramedics them to school while they're on shift and then backfill those positions. This is something that is a little bit of a trend just because we're trying to get folks in and we don't have nearly as many folks applying to be firefighter paramedics as we did before. Public safety applications are way down overall. And so some of the folks that we bring in don't have that paramedic license that they normally would have had a few years ago. And so we're helping folks get that paramedic license as part of the budget, and we did that, and then those folks are in the process of doing that right now in this year. In 2024, we entered into an agreement with Zilber to redevelop 1809 Adele. It's a 286,000 square foot facility. And so again, we're working on that. Every city manager is excited about crack filling. So 15 and a half miles. Crack filling, that water is not going to get in those streets. No, sir. It's actually, I joke about it, but it's an incredibly important process for extending the life of the street. My public works director is here somewhere. I saw him earlier. He's very happy about this. We're going to continue to do that. And so things that you might not realize, we have a microturbine at the wastewater treatment plant. And so microturbines, are what they sound like, produce energy for the plant, for the flow that's going through there. 11.6 miles of street were rehabilitated or reconstructed. We have a general goal, depending upon the project, to try to do about 12 miles of street a year. And so we're continuing that process. We have a new playground at Waveland Park will be done before the end of the year. And of course, the on-time, on-budget Woodland Sports and Convention Center has been started and is well on its way. So 2025, what are we looking at? So we have a combined general fund, water, wastewater, sanitation, transportation, stormwater fund of $133.3 million. Our budget's about a 4.25% increase from 2024. Our operating budget's $101.6 million. That's an increase of about $6.1 million from 2024. And our debt service is at $31.7 million, or a 2% increase from 2024. So what does that mean in terms of taxes and whatnot? Well, this is a combined budget of all of the funds all together. This is how it breaks down by fund. So obviously the general fund, the tax-supported fund, is the biggest one. That's the one that's going to fund your police, your fire, your public works in general, your public works operations in general. But of course, we have 11% that's a water fund. We have 9%, which is sanitation. And so that's a big part of our budget because we have the municipal landfill. And not every municipality has that. And that is a huge asset for the city. We have the wastewater fund, which is about 9.5. And then we have our other funds. And so wheel tax fund, where we do some street improvements with that. Our Hedberg Public Library is 3.5%. Stormwater is 8.7%. And then we have state and federal grants at about 3%. And so that's kind of how it breaks down all the funds all together. So what does that mean in terms of what it's going to be for taxes and fees. So at the end of the day, the average home in Janesville, their tax bill is going to increase about $5 for next year. So 0.4% overall. And so you can do the math on that for the businesses that you own. It's going to be a little bit more than $5 likely. Sorry about that. But the average homeowner is going to pay about $5 more on their tax bill. The reason for that is a combination of a couple of things. One is economic growth. Economic growth in our community spreads the tax burden out, reduces the levy impact on the average homeowner. And then the other thing is the state legislature changed how they did personal property tax. And so personal property tax was removed from the tax bill, and now there's state aid that backfills that. And so the general property tax bill is going to go down for the average homeowner here in Janesville. And then on the water utility side, we're seeing about a 7% increase related to water, wastewater, stormwater, and our solid waste management. And so overall, we did pretty well when it comes to the impact on taxes here in the city. Our property tax levy is $42.1 million. And as we talked about, it's an increase. The increase was $262,000 or 0.63% for the reasons that I talked about before. As I mentioned, it's about a $5 increase on the average home. The average home, the median value home, the middle value in the city of Janesville is $223,600. So one of the things that we deal with is just, the way the state works and the way that levies are capped and those sort of things. It does not keep up with the pace of inflation. So we just like to make sure that we point that out when we have these discussions. And so this chart shows you the consumer price index versus the net new construction number over the last few years. And so what that means to us is that the stuff that we buy, gas, like all of you, asphalt, construction material, energy, all of those sorts of things has gone up in cost, but the cap that we are placed under in terms of tax levy does not keep pace. It does not keep pace with the rate of inflation. And so we operate in that gap every year. So what do? You either have to cut expenses or you have to create new revenue streams to fill that gap. And it just continues to get wider and wider as we go forward. And you can see with inflation in the last few years, it has created a much larger gap in terms of the stuff that we have to purchase and the net new construction that we experience here in the city. So as we look at 2025, the City Council established 9 budget parameters. We met 9 of those in our proposed budget, which is slated to be approved in November. We have a great transit system. It's going to continue to be maintained with some of the lowest fares in the state. We have a great partnership with the school district in terms of providing free rides for the students to get to school every day and then throughout the year, which has been a great benefit to both. Some of the kids get a little squirrely sometimes, but we're still working on that. But it's been a great benefit to both of our organizations and a great example of a partnership with your local governments here. We're able to add a few positions, and really we're building some internal capacity that has not been addressed over the years. So facilities maintenance person, really to create some coordination and some planning around our assets, IT support. Obviously, there's a lot of things happening in IT, especially in terms of security and things like that we have to be on top of, and then an engineer and a planner in this next budget. We're receiving $847,000 in additional state aid, and we're increasing cash funding of capital projects by $186,000. So that's funding that we don't have to take out debt for, and that's a 8% increase over what we've done in previous years. So again, saving some of the interest dollars and funding some of the capital projects with cash. We have had a history of having to create a budget that drew from our reserve fund each year. And we have decreased that down to zero. So we have a completely balanced budget with no draw on our general fund reserves this year for the first time in several years. And so we are very happy with that. Again, that is due to our economic growth, the way we have controlled our spending as compared to our budget year over year. We're very happy about meeting that budget goal. We're going to have a new Palmer Park Aquatic Center by the summer 2025. So we're very excited about that. That's going to be a great asset for our community. The wading pool has had a long history here in the city, and we're really excited to have a new asset to benefit the community. We're going to rehab about 10.5 miles of streets. We're going to complete the lead lateral replacement program, which we started several years ago. And we're working on designing Dawson Softball Complex improvements. We have our West Court Street safety conversion and signal replacement. We are doing getting close to the last phase, not quite the last phase of our city service center renovation. We're extending the trail, the Fisher Creek Trail, and we're constructing Sand Hill Drive. And then we're going to do some update to our Riverwalk lighting down in our downtown. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions that you might have about anything. So I'm happy. Anybody? Yes, sir.
I get asked pretty frequently about the existing ice arena and what you guys are going to do with it when it's done. Have you guys talked about future plans?
Yeah, that's a great question. Ideally, what we would like to do is work with the National Guard and acquire the site next to them. There have been some discussions earlier, but not anything recent, because we think that could be a positive redevelopment site. There's contamination due to the National Guard use there that we'd have to deal with. But it would be ideal if we could combine those properties and create a real nice redevelopment parcel to do some sort of residential type of thing there. That would be ideal. We probably are not going to want to maintain that building in existing state. You know a lot about that building. But that's probably would be ideal. But we haven't really gone down that road until we get the other one open yet. So. What other questions do you have?
Kevin?
Yeah.
When you are talking to companies that are looking at Janesville, what are the things that they're telling you they like? What are the things they're telling you they have questions about? What are the things that the private sector can do to make Janesville more appealing? And are you seeing any kind of change in the kind of workforce that they're looking for, versus, let's say, some of the more warehousing type businesses?
Yeah, so in general, the things that we have going for in terms of Janesville is location. We're we're on the interstate corridor. We're in between that Madison and Rockford and then down to Chicago market. Our land prices are more affordable than the Madison Metro, which is very helpful. So that is all like real positive things. The challenge is always going to be workforce. I mean, that's the fundamental challenge. We have to create opportunities to build more housing, to get more folks to live here, to get them closer to the employers. That is something that we have to continue to focus on as we move forward. That is the biggest thing. In terms of skill sets and things like that, obviously we have a long history of advanced manufacturing here. That continues to expand. We have some food manufacturing here, things like that are really kind of like core businesses that have attracted other folks to look at us. And so some of the prospects that we have come through are in that realm, food manufacturing, kind of advanced manufacturing type of things. I'm really excited about shine in what they continue to do. I think that's going to attract some additional investment. That's we're talking about a pretty highly educated workforce in that area. But really, it's about the advanced manufacturing, and it's about getting the workforce closer. Those are the challenges that we have. We have a great tax structure. I gave you the examples of that, and we get a lot of flack for taxes, and we should. I mean, we should pay attention to our taxes. But I can tell you, we're much more affordable in Illinois. And our tax structure is much more favorable than that. And so if you look at us as compared to other cities in the state, we have one of the best tax structures of our combined city, county, school district in the state. So we are highly competitive in that area. I think that we are benefiting from kind of the massive growth in the Madison area and the cost associated with that, and folks looking for a more affordable option that's in that corridor. That's the best answer I can give you. Thank you. Yes.
So the other night, the City Council adopted a resolution calling November Homelessness Awareness Month.
Yep.
And that was a nice resolution, but I'm wondering what the city is on a concrete level doing about that. How's it going at the parking lot by City Hall?
Oh, yeah. So in terms of the parking lot stuff, it's been a pretty good transition. Folks are using it. They're complying with the rules. And that seems to be going well. So we do have folks that are using it, and that is good. We did address the issue of folks just simply camping, which was not something that we could continue to support. It was just draining too many resources. When it comes to addressing homelessness as a whole, we are working with our partners to help do solutions on that. And that involves a lot of things related to supporting them in terms of their sheltering, but also in terms of housing, and finding ways to do projects to get housing. And it can be a variety of things. It can be things like tiny home projects, which is something I think that we should seriously be looking at with our partners, and then also affordable housing projects as well. That's really going to be the key to that. The other aspect of that is that we have had for a long time within our organization outreach teams with nonprofits to go to talk to folks and try to get them into the right places for help. Obviously, that's a challenge. It's a challenge of every community. Every community in the state of any size is dealing with this issue and trying to find solutions. I think that in terms of Janesville, we are dealing with we've been dealing with it and trying to develop solutions for a long time, and actually are ahead of some of our other cities in that regard, but it's going to continue to be a challenge. It always is. Yeah.
How many more houses does Janesville need?
I'll tell you when we need it, when we're done. There's a housing. I can't quote a chapter and verse. I wish my.
Do we need 200? Do we need 2,000? Do we need 9,000?
We need thousands. I mean, we need in the thousands. Probably, if I had to put a number on it, it'd be 2,000 some different housing units of all types. And so there's a housing study. I wish I could quote it chapter and verse, but we definitely continue to need it.
Governor, what tools does the city use to create opportunities for increased housing?
Yeah, so there's a variety of things. So when it comes to particularly like when we're talking about redevelopment projects and things like that, we can use tax increment finance districts to a certain extent for multifamily housing. It has to be part of like a mixed use. There's only a certain percentage of property within a TIF district that can be dedicated to residential. In terms of like your typical single family homes, it's really just a planning process, working with developers to try to maximize their product and making sure it fits the market. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're updating our zoning code. And so our zoning code is going to be reflective of some of the best practices, and that relates to reducing densities, creating a more opportunity for things like accessory dwelling units, so like the mother-in-law suite, because I know everybody wants to live with their mother-in-law, but stuff like that. But there's opportunities that we can do there, so that like when we have a development come in, and I've had great success with this in another community where we can take a look at it, and if you look at like a typical single family housing design, and you're talking about like a quarter acre or even like a half acre lot, that's going to create a certain value for your community, and it's going to be a nice house, right? It's going to be a 400,000 plus valued house, right? You can take that same property, reduce the lot size, still build a really nice house, and get much more units per acre on it, and create more value and create more housing for your community. And you can do things also with like doing interesting things around like condo development. There's also like single family condo development that you can do, and then mix those together in the right way to create that mix that you need to create the number of housing units that you need. And so there's a lot of things that you can do in cooperation with developers. We have to fix our code, because right now it's a process to do anything unique, as some in the room know. And we would like to make that a lot easier, get more use by right within the code. So like when you have a project and you can come in and you can just do it, right? You can take a building permit, and if you meet the requirements, you can just do it, as opposed to having to get special zoning approved by the city council. So TIF incentives are one, zoning code is another. Really just working really hard to market available properties to developers as well. So one of the projects that we're working on right now came from the fact that I sat down with our folks and said, let's identify property that's developable that we own right now. And one of the projects that's going to be coming through soon is the result of that. Jimsy.
I would also like to add to the Sandhill Drive. Sandhill Drive
Yeah.
is an area that has been undeveloped for quite some time. And sometimes that's a hard decision to make. It's a chicken or an egg, right?
Right.
Putting in that infrastructure has a cost associated to it. All property owners. Part of that is the city owns part of that property, but this is an area of our community that can be developed out. And so Sandhill Drive is going to be in 2025 because that area needs to be developed. Part of that would be when you look at the land use map and existing zoning over there, there's opportunities for single-family home, so mixed density opportunities as well as higher density opportunities in commercial development. So sometimes you got to make those hard decisions too around some infrastructure.
Tim.
Maybe more of a comment than a question on that, the Sandhill Drive. With all due respect to those in this room that live in the Milton School District, one of the challenges that Janesville has, especially the Janesville School District, is that a development such as that will most likely go into the Milton School District. And so I would just encourage city leaders to think of ways where we can incentivize infill development within the city of Janesville, and maybe consider how we handle and sharing some of the infrastructure costs at the outset to help ease the costs on the developers. I'm just wondering if that's anything that you guys have considered or talked about, or.
Yeah, I know that like we have in the past done some infrastructure work before development comes in. It's a bit of a challenge to do that, just because if something doesn't happen, you're left holding the bag. You're left holding the investment without any sort of payback. So I think that there's just unique ways that you can do that. I think you're right in terms of infill development, like trying to find the right projects within the right areas and then seeking out a developer that can pull it off and you can develop a partnership with. That's really what we're focused on. As Jimsy Melton, we saw that Sandhill Drive road. We're building that road now because the projects that were coming in were not great. And we were having to say no because the quality of the project was very low because of what they had to do in order to fund the infrastructure. So the city's fronting that, and we can find more opportunities throughout the city, whatever school district it's in. That's what we'd like to do. So, Steve.
Yeah, Kevin, can you refresh my memory? Do the developers have to pay for the infrastructure prior to the beginning of it? I know at one time that was kind of a big controversy, but I can't remember where we are as a city in regards to that.
So usually the infrastructure is going in with the development itself. So they're constructing it as they are building, as they're building their project. Where's my public works director? Where's there? Yeah, it's usually, it's going in. So it's usually the developers putting it in along with whatever they're building.
My
Yeah.
point, if you're gonna look to expand and get 2,000 homes or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you might want to, you know, you do TIF districts, you do everything else. Maybe you may have to look at upfronting those costs and letting them pay you back over time. I'm not,
Yeah, and those are all things,
I'm just,
yeah.
as a tool to
Yeah.
look at, I know sometimes that doesn't work out real well. But
Yeah.
that comes to the quality of the partner that you're working with
Mm.
to ensure that it gets done, but just,
Yeah, and we are always looking for creative solutions in that way. You know, it's just the mechanism and the ability to protect the city's investment is the biggest issue. We don't want to ever run into a situation where a recession happens and then we're left holding the bag. And then, you know, the citizens are the ones that are having to front that cost without any payback. So we're just real careful about that. But I'll tell you what, I personally have done some very creative deals in my career, and I will continue to try to find those. Actually, to my staff's chagrin, sometimes I definitely am constantly thinking outside the box to try to find ways to do things. So, all right, folks, thank you so much for being here this morning. I really appreciate all the time. Thank you to Forward Janesville for being here. And thank you, Shar, and all the members of the board. Really appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great of your day, and go vote. Go vote. This is like a Super Bowl, World Series wrapped up in one.